Hi guys, and welcome back for another episode of Miss Harlow's Quarantine Reads, where I talk to you about what I've been reading while we're on extended leave. Alright, today's quarantine read is Ashlords by Scott Reintgen. This is a brand new YA fantasy novel. It just came out in January, and it is the first in a series. I think there's for sure going to be a second book, there might be a third. This book is about three different characters who partake in what are called the races, and it is a yearly event in this world where 11 riders take on this multiple day race course, and they use what are called phoenix horses, which are a species of horse that every night burn to ash and then the next morning rise when the sunlight hits those ashes. What's really cool, aside from phoenix horses, what a great concept, is that depending on the different alchemical components you put in the ashes, changes how the horse rises the next day. So there's like different ingredients you can add in, and it will give you a horse that can jump extra high, or has spikes, so it's like a defense, or it has scaled armor. Like cool stuff like that. And so there's like a weird alchemy component to bringing these horses to life every morning. And so on each day of the race, they can have a different, they call it a rebirth, a different rebirth and a different horse. One thing I did find a little bit challenging about this book is that there were three different characters, all with like a different point of view that we followed. We should probably talk about point of view. In fiction, point of view refers to the narrator's position in relation to the story being told. Generally speaking, there are three types of point of view. First-person point of view means that the narrator is telling their own story. Lots of I statements. I did this, I did that, I thought, etc. This is very, very common in YA fiction. Second person is much less common. It is as if the narrator is speaking directly to you as if you were the character. You do this, you do that, you make decisions. I've seen it a lot in like the last few years. There's been some really interesting attempts, but it is considered more experimental to use the second person in fiction. Third person narrator is probably the most common. It is a narrator who is outside of the characters, who is telling you everything as if they are kind of perched on that character's shoulder. They're not inside their head, but they do see what the character sees. Third person also gets kind of weird because there's two kinds of third person narrator. There's third person limited, which means that it is limited to what the character you're focusing on can experience, and it kind of is through their lens, even though it's not in first person. And then there's third person omniscient, which isn't nearly as popular as it used to be, especially in the 70s. There was a lot of third person omniscient going on. What that means is that the narrator was all-knowing. The narrator saw everything and could kind of move the lens around and could just comment on anything and everything. A good example of this would be The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's a very purposeful, third-person, omniscient narrator. All right, now you're a point of view pro. Back to the book. The book is that there were three different characters, all with like a different point of view that we followed. And so I thought that took a little bit of time to get into each of those characters' heads, and each of those characters represents a different society in the book. So the first half of the book, we're just learning who's who, where are they from, and what does that mean? So it's a lot of world building and a lot of character development. So the first half of the book feels pretty slow. Once we get to the races, things pick up, and it's a lot more action-packed. Characters are making much more active decisions, and it's a much more interesting read. The last 100 pages flew by for me. I liked it, and I left the book at the end feeling really good about it and excited for the next one. I liked his characters. There's one character I'm not sure about, but I think depending on how the next book goes, I could like her a lot more. But the other two characters I really liked, especially by the end. Good news is that our library does own this book, so next time we're in the building, you'll see it, and I will buy the sequel, because I'm not going to have half series. That's not fun. No one wants that. He does have other books, so depending on how this one does, if you guys really like it and check it out a lot, I could probably pick those up as well. I think that is all I really have to say about this book. It was super fun once you got to the races. It's a bit of a slog up front, but it's worth it. The payoff is really good. The characters are good. You just have to be patient with the first half. So yeah, I'll be back for the sequel, and I'll be back soon with another quarantine read.